Alrighty guys, for this DIY you're going to need one composition notebook, two pieces of 12 by 12 paper or whatever paper matches the size of your notebook. I'm using a pink glittery size paper and it worked perfectly because I used both pages for the front and back of my book. You're also going to need some kind of adhesive. I used hot glue the entire time, but if Elmer's works for you and that's what you have, go ahead and use it. I also used markers, scissors, and stickers. The stickers are from the My Happy Planner from Michaels, and I only used the bluish teal and yellow stickers on the front. They're hearts. I also used Fiskars scissors, which are sewing scissors, but were great for cardstock paper. Alright guys, so the first step of this DIY are to make sure that the binding and the edge of the paper are lined up because I don't want the binding to be covered by paper. I'm also going to make sure that the edge of the book and the edge of the paper are aligned so we don't have to cut out the cover in the middle of the page. I'm also going to make marks at the top and the bottom of the book and then trace around it and make sure that I trace those corners because I want to make sure that those corners are rounded. Next, I'm going to take my scissors and carefully cut out the cover, and to make sure that the cover is safely cut out and not cut too small, I'm trying to overcut and cut above the line so that way there's more paper. Now that the paper is carefully and perfectly cut out, I'm going to align it to the notebook and make sure that all the edges are perfect and that they're all somewhat aligned. Again, if the cover is too big, it's fine and we can fix it later. Now I'm going to take my hot glue gun and start in the left hand corner, the top left hand corner, and make sure that I glue all around the edges, and I'm only going to start off with glue in the top corner of the book because I want to make sure that all the edges of this book and cover are secured so the cover doesn't lift up later on. Make sure that the hot glue is grabbing onto the paper. And because it's so hot, I'm taking a flat surface and I'm carefully rubbing that along the page and the book to make sure that the hot glue is spreading and grabbing on. There is some hot glue pour on the binding, and it's fine because later on we'll take an X-Acto knife and cut that off. Also make sure that there is no hot glue getting stuck to the pages because we don't want serious damage done to the pages. Next, I'm just going to be slowly gluing each quarter of the book piece by piece. This will take some time, but it's totally worth it because this ensures that more edges are covered and it's securely glued down. During this process, I'm going to take a flat surface, which is my succulent vase, and just keep rubbing it against it, and it doesn't matter if we get hot glue on the binding, we'll take that off later. As I'm finishing up, I'm just going to rub my hands all over the book and kind of pat in those corners. Finishing up, I'm just going to rub my hands all over the book and kind of pat in those corners and take off any hot glue strings that are left behind. Now I'm going to look on the inside of the book and see if there's any hot glue stuck to the pages, and as you can see there are, so I'm just carefully removing those with my fingers. I don't need an X-Acto knife because it was just a little bit. Now there's a tiny piece of paper that is hanging over, so I'm going to take my scissors and carefully cut that off, and it's a very tiny sliver, so I'm trying to be very careful to make sure that my scissors are not cutting the actual book, and that they're only cutting the paper, and I'm going to be checking on both sides to make sure that that is not happening. And now I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, which is also a Fisker sewing knife, and remove the hot glue. As you can see, I'm first trying to take as much off as I can with my hand, and then I'm going to go in carefully with my knife and kind of just poke and stab at the hot glue and try to get under it, so that way I don't rip the binding and I don't rip through the actual book cover, and to make sure that the binding doesn't come off. Alright, so starting with the back side, I'm just going to line the book and paper up just like I did with the front cover, and then I'm going to trace out the cover and cut it out. To finish up cutting, I'm just going to align the paper on the back of the book and make sure that everything looks good, and it does. So now I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner of the book, make my way across to the corner before the binding, and I'm going to start off by putting glue on that first quarter of the book, and then place the paper over top of it and rub it down with a flat surface. Now I'm just going to be opening up the book and taking off any hot glue that was stuck to pages and rounding the corners with some scissors, and just cutting off any extra paper that may be hanging over. Also, on the bottom, I had a tiny piece of the actual book cover that was showing, so I decided to cut off that part, and it did not affect the overall look of the book whatsoever. This is what the front of the book looks like. My camera cut out in the middle of me decorating it, so I'm really sorry for that, but I'm going to be doing the same thing on the back, except for now I'm placing down blue and yellow hearts without a title.